In the watch world, the Rainbow watch has been seen on the wrists of ultra wealthy to include Mark Wahlberg and Kevin Hart. Now, we're talking specifically about the Rolex Daytona Rainbow that goes for anywhere from $400,000 on the used secondary market and up. These things are extremely hard to get. What I'm trying to say is the Rainbow watch in the watch community is indicative of something that is ultra high end and hard to get. Today, we're looking at a special edition from D1 Milano that is exclusive. Today, we're looking at the true GMT D1 Milano Rainbow. Now, this watch is hard to get. I'll leave instructions down below if you guys are interested in getting this watch. It's not something you can just go to D1 Milano's website to get if you're interested. This watch has a price point of $500, which is a steal when we get into the hands-on of the review because of all the high quality materials to include the true Miyota GMT function of this watch. Now, the macro shots are few and far between because it's just hard in the setup that I have here to get some good macro shots, but I do have some macro shots showing just the high quality of materials that they've used and how great they've done in creating this watch. All that being said, let's go ahead and flip the camera around and get right into the hands-on review. Now, I really love what D1 Milano is doing and what they've done in the past. Now, this is not the first time I've ever held a D1 Milano. In fact, I did a review about 2 years ago on the Ultra Slim quartz version. Now, that quartz version didn't have a second hand, which made me love it even more, but it was an ultra slim watch that looked almost identical to this, except stainless steel with a blue dial, and that thing was just gorgeous. One of the most comfortable watches I've ever worn. Well, it's an exclusive watch, this D1 Milano Rainbow in all black, and this is a true GMT. We're going to get into all the specs in just a second. If you want to get this watch, there's a special way to get it. I will link it down below in how to get this watch if you're interested. Let's first talk about the price of a true GMT Rainbow here that I have in my hand. This is $500, which is very hard to find in something that's a true GMT. We'll get into the true GMT in just a minute. This is a black stainless steel case, full stainless steel all the way around, and this bracelet tapers down to just under 18 millimeters, so it fits quite nicely and lovely on the wrist. This is a friction clasp, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's the same type of clasp that's on my fiance's Cartier Tank Solo, so really can't blame them on that. Really, you don't want a butterfly clasp on this because it's going to ruin the overall aesthetic of the watch itself. This is a rainbow, as you can see here, and rainbow is one of those things that's indicative of, well, in 2023, it's not what it used to be, but the rainbow bezel on watches like the Rainbow Daytona Rolex, that is a very, very high-end luxury watch. The rainbow on the watch has been known to be a higher-end watch that's more exclusive, right? The Rolex Rainbow Daytona is so hard to get that they're about $400,000 right now to purchase. So they decided, D1 Milano decided to do a rainbow exclusive limited edition, and specifically this is the GMB J01. And when we start getting into all the macro shots, you'll see just how good this watch is. Now, it does have an AR coating, and you can see that it does have a light blue reflection when I kind of put it into the light. It's making the dial a little hard to read in the studio. Outside, it's not hard to read at all. But we're going to do our best. Now, let's go over some dimensions. The diameter of this is 42 millimeters in diameter. The case thickness is 12 millimeters, so it's actually quite thin. It doesn't seem thin right here in my hand, but 12 millimeters, it's actually just under. It's 11.75, but just under 12. And the lug to lug or overall presentation on the wrist is going to be 52 millimeters. Now, this thing does have a large presence on the wrist, but that's kind of what you want if you have a rainbow GMT. right? It's not meant to be subdued. It's meant to, catch some eyes. And they did a really good job using the black stainless steel of this watch, the integrated bracelet, the case shape of this. Okay, let's talk about the case shape real quick. One of the things I love about D1 Milano are all the watches look the same. They all have a similar case shape to this. The Ultra Slim series that I did look just like this. It's sort of like an Audemars Piguet or even a Tissot PRX, except all of their watches in their line, either their polycarbonate line, their Ultra Slim line, their GMT line, their automatic line, all look the same. The bezel on this watch is ceramic, and it is a black high polished ceramic, and you can see that the numerals around the bezel are all colored, and they all are correlation to the batons on the inside of the dial. I'll show you that in just a minute. The bezel here is multi-directional. It goes both ways, and the clicks are hard and solid. This is for the GMT function, allowing you to read actually a third time zone if you want. This is more of a 24-hour bezel, and we'll get into the movement. Let's just get into the movement right now. The movement, like I said, is a true GMT. And you say, Chase, what's a true GMT? Well, a true GMT means that while the watch is still ticking, you're able to put it in a function that allows you to change the hour hand only. A lot of times what you'll see with the GMT watches out there on the more affordable end, I'm talking about under $1,000, is this is more of a 24-hour slave hand to the actual hour hand, which means that as you change it into a time function, you're able to move the GMT hand around that is slaved to the time of the watch itself, if that makes any sense. Well, the way a GMT watch is supposed to work is you're supposed to be able to change the hour hand to the time zone that you're going into. So the way the GMT is supposed to work is the main GMT hand here is for your home time zone. So right now, if it is 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm traveling ahead, we'll say from Alaska, I'm traveling ahead to Florida, which is 4 hours ahead. I want to keep my watch time telling time. Right? I don't want to have to pause the second hand to be able to change the GMT function. That's not a true GMT. I should be able to change it on the fly, especially if I'm somebody like a pilot or someone who travels a lot. I want to be able to make sure that the timekeeping is still accurate. So I pull this out into the first position, and you can see that the second hand is still ticking. Now, what this does is it allows me to move the hour hand forward 4 hours into the new time zone. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it's 5 o'clock. It's 5:03 in the new time zone I'm traveling into, but my home time is still 1:03. If that makes any sense. Now, if I want to change the overall time in general, I pull it out 2 clicks, and you can see that it does have hacking, it does have hand winding, and now I can just change the entirety of the watch itself. So one of the things I do love is that this is a true GMT, and you just really don't see it in watches of this price, which I'm super happy of. I love the fact that they are using the correct movement for the watches. A lot of micro brands don't do that. They tend to cheapen out on the movement itself, except D1 Milano didn't do that. Now let's go ahead and talk about the dial. The dial is a brushed black, and it does have kind of a texturing along the outside where the indices are. And it does have a chapter ring around the outside that's color also corresponds with the batons of the indices. The indices are a baton style. They're high polished. They do have lume. And along the inside of the baton is the rainbow coloring that corresponds with the outside bezel, which is super nice. This is very pleasant for the eye, and it just adds a little more detail to the watch that they didn't need to do. Now, it does have a date down here at the 6 o'clock, and the date's done quite nicely, even under the macro lens. The printing's done nicely, the date is done nicely, and they really spared no expense for creating this watch. It's hard to see where they actually cut the corners. And that was one of the things that I do love about some micro brands and that I hate about other micro brands. D1 Milano didn't really seem to cut any corners when building this watch. In fact, it's one of the highest quality GMTs, especially at the price point of $500 that I've seen on the market so far. And I've had my hands on well over 300 watches so far reviewed on this channel to date. The black stainless steel is brushed all the way around, and I love the fact that it has like a stealth look to it. Overall, I think the watch has a really nice presence. It does have an unsigned crown. It is screw down, and this does have 50 meters of water resistance, so you can wear it in everyday life without having to worry about any type of water intrusion. Sapphire crystal with that blue air coating along the top. So we're talking about high quality materials in this watch. Now, I don't think I went into the actual GMT that's inside of this. I went through the functionality. It's a Miyota 9075. It is a true GMT, 24 joules, 28,800 vibrations an hour, and 42 hours of power reserve, which is great to see. Again, they use the correct movement for the correct watch. The bezel here is a little hard to grip, and it does lock hard into place. But I would rather take a bezel that's harder to grip, that locks into place securely, than one that's easily bumped and adjusted without you adjusting it. Let's go ahead and toss this bad boy on my wrist. Here's the watch on my 7¼ inch wrist. You can see that it does have a little bit of presence on the wrist. Now, the only negative thing I'm going to say about this D1 Milano, outside of the fact that it's a rainbow, but it is exclusive for their company, and this is a hard to get piece. It's going to be limited. So again, if you're interested, follow the link down below or the instructions down below in the description. One of the only things I'm going to talk negatively about this watch is going to be the integrated bracelet. With any watch with any integrated bracelet, the issue is it's not going to fit perfectly on your wrist every single time. Let's just say you live in Las Vegas and it's hot outside, 104 degrees, and your wrist is slightly swollen, and this fits your wrist perfectly as it's slightly swollen as you move around outside, and then you go into a casino that is air conditioned to 65 degrees and your wrist slightly swells because the capillaries and the veins in your arm shrinks and everything contracts, and then this is slightly loose. Well, D1 Milano is not the only one that has this problem. I'm just kind of throwing it out there for you guys. A lot of people don't like the integrated bracelet because of this issue, because there's no micro adjustments, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind. Other than that, it's a lovely watch. Now, what do you guys think about the D1 Milano Black GMT exclusive rainbow that they have? I think it gives a nice pop of colors, not in a way that is, extremely over the top, but that black subdued brushed stainless steel case to me just gives that really nice stealth look that slips underneath your cuff. That's going to look great in a suit or great in shorts. One of the things that I love the most is that they use a true GMT watch. I have a cheaper GMT coming in the mail from Cadison, and I'll show you what I mean by a slave GMT compared to a true GMT, so I'll compare them in the future. Now, if you guys like videos like this, I have a lot of watches sitting on the desk to review, so hit that subscribe button, leave a comment of the content you guys would like to see. This is all things random, mostly watch reviews with random stuff that I find entertaining or valuable to you guys sprinkled in between. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell. Got that 15,000 subscriber giveaway coming up. I got a flamethrower in the mail that I'm going to be reviewing, and I have, again, a bunch of watch stuff and a bunch of dive stuff coming up in the future. So make sure you guys stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.